Most world leaders travel the globe in sleek, heavily modified jets, but the supreme leader of North Korea moves differently. When Kim Jong Un crosses borders, he relies on a massive, olive-green armored train known as the Taeyongho. This map shows his most recent journey. He traveled from Pyongyang to eastern Russia, a route covering roughly 1,000 kilometers. In a standard airplane, that's a 2-hour flight. On this train, it took well over 48 hours. To make that grueling transit happen, North Korea essentially turns off its domestic rail network. As the Taeyongho approaches any of the 20 private stations built exclusively for its use, power is completely cut to all other national railway lines. Why freeze an entire country's infrastructure just to move a single person? The answer lies in how the vehicle is built. The Taeyongho is a rolling fortress, heavily armed and meticulously engineered to counter the pervasive fear of assassination that dictates how the North Korean regime operates. This schematic reveals the first layer of defense. The Taeyongho never actually travels as a single vehicle. It operates as a strict, synchronized, 3-train convoy system. A vanguard train travels ahead, physically scanning the tracks for planted explosives and clearing the route. Following tightly behind the leader's carriage is a rearguard train, packed with heavily armed security forces, acting as a mobile, fortified barracks. The perimeter extends into the sky. Scout helicopters fly ahead of the convoy to survey the terrain, while cargo planes drop advanced military personnel at the closest airports along the route to secure the area. Then there is the physical armor on the Supreme Leader's carriage. The windows are layered with reinforced bulletproof glass, and the underbelly is hardened with heavy steel plating, designed specifically to absorb the blast from track-mounted bombs. Inside hidden compartments, the train operates an active arsenal. It carries anti-aircraft missiles, anti-tank weapons, and heavy machine guns, ready to aggressively return fire during an ambush. The regime does not view travel as a simple logistical task. They plan every journey under the active assumption that a coordinated, multi-directional military strike is imminent. Layering a train in steel plating and heavy weaponry creates an enormous amount of physical weight. Because it is so heavy, the convoy is restricted to a maximum speed of about 60 kilometers per hour. That slow pace is dragged down further by the reality of the country it travels through. North Korea's railway system suffers from decades of decay, forcing the heavy train to crawl over uneven, poorly maintained tracks. If the infrastructure fails entirely and the convoy is completely immobilized, a built-in helicopter carried on board serves as a final, immediate aerial escape pod for the dictator. By chasing absolute security through thick armor, the regime created a vehicle that barely moves. The sluggish speed vastly increases the amount of time the supreme leader is exposed out in the open. Inside, the environment sits in stark contrast to the severe poverty sliding past the bulletproof windows. The interior is a bizarre mix of extreme luxury. The floors are shiny white wood, flanked by hot pink and zebra print sofas. Live singers are brought on board for entertainment, and the kitchen serves imported delicacies from Russian, Japanese, and French cuisines. Deep in the cargo hold, the train even carries 2 fully armored Mercedes limousines, ready to roll out the moment they arrive for the final stretch of the trip. This reliance on rails began with the previous supreme leader, Kim Jong-il. He reportedly suffered from an intense, paralyzing fear of flying, and the paranoia surrounding the train's security has a clear historical trigger. In 2004, a massive explosion ripped through the Ryongchan railway station near the Chinese border, leaving a massive crater and killing over 160 people. The blast happened just hours after Kim Jong-il's train had passed through. The regime treats the exterior of the train as a hardened target because their history validates that terror. The interior is designed to completely insulate the dictator from the outside world. After days of crawling along the tracks, the Taeyongho finally arrived at the Vostochny Cosmodrome, a massive spaceport in eastern Russia. The destination was set for a highly scrutinized, face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two leaders met out of a desperate, mutual necessity. Russia is burning through its military resources in the war against Ukraine and urgently needs access to North Korea's enormous stockpiles of artillery and ammunition. In exchange for supplying those weapons, North Korea expects advanced technical support from Moscow. They need Russian expertise to build functional spy satellites and modernize the ballistic missiles vital to their nuclear program. North Korean state media frames the Taeyong-ho as a symbol of a modest, down-to-earth leader who prefers traveling close to his people. The reality is entirely different. The armored train physically represents the extreme, suffocating isolation of a regime cut off from the rest of the world, negotiating weapon deals with one of its few remaining allies. Following the summit, Vladimir Putin accepted an official invitation to visit Pyongyang in return. To make the trip safely, the heavily sanctioned Russian president might need to start building an armored train of his own.